Back here, first things first, time for Say What? The Jags got the win over the Giants, but had to overcome 119 yards of penalties in the process. Jags coach Doug Marrone says that could be an issue in the future. Say what?
We know that we can be better than that. And, at the end of the day, we were able to get the win. But, if you keep, on that track, that stuff will bite you in the ass. Am I allowed to say that? Yeah. Okay.
Say it, then ask for permission.
Shout out to my guy from the Bronx, just coming out there and just saying how it is, man. I love Doug Marrone. I love that attitude with this team. Listen, it was a sloppy football game in MetLife Stadium, and he knows it. They got out of there with one. I mean, the Giants had opportunity after opportunity and blew all of them, including but not only the muff punt at the end by Kalen Clay. But, it was a sloppy football game, but the Jags did just enough to get the win.
Yep. All right, let's move on with Greg Jennings here on set. Browns hosting the Steelers yesterday. Browns looking for the first win in what felt like forever. Taking on a Steelers team without L. Bell. No Le'Veon Bell in this one. This game closer than the Steelers would have liked. It went to overtime, tied at 21, and that's where this game stayed. Bell's replacement, James Conner, had 192 total yards and 2 touchdowns, while quarterback Ben Roethlisberger had 5 turnovers. Head coach Mike Tomlin spoke about the joys of a tie after the game.
It's an awkward feeling after a game like that. You don't know what to feel or to say or to think. I'm appreciative of the efforts of the men. Obviously, it was some extraordinary effort at times. We got to play better. Got to play better to ensure victory.
You felt like we had a chance. And our defense did a great job of giving us that chance. It's just frustrating that you can't make the plays down the stretch, and we didn't make them.
We got to play better all the way around is what I told our football team. It's just not where we want to be yet. Again, it's not preseason football. It's the National Football League. It's regular season. We got to continue to get better. But again, I think the guys can see that we're an improved football team, but there are some areas we got to clean up fast.
Greg, the Browns were like, we didn't lose, we didn't lose, we didn't lose. Let's talk about it from the Steelers' perspective to start off. How concerning was their performance in this tie against the Browns?
For me, it's concerning. It's very concerning. And I'll start with Ben Roethlisberger. The most important player on the field, and you turn the ball over 5 times. You just can't do that. For me, when I look at Ben Roethlisberger, as great a quarterback, as great as a career that he's had, he turns the ball over. He's going to give the opposing opponent at least 2, maybe 3 extra possessions every single game. You cannot do that. When you're playing in a game like this, with the conditions the way they were, the hierarchy of the game is protect the football.
Especially when you got a 21-7 lead in the fourth quarter.
As a quarterback, you're getting in the huddle, Chris, and you're telling everybody, guys, protect the football. You're telling your young running back, 2 hands on the football. And you continue to be the mishap when it comes to turnovers, getting stripped, throwing errant passes. I need to see Ben Roethlisberger play better consistently. This is why the Pittsburgh Steelers struggled yesterday, because of their leader, Ben Roethlisberger. He just didn't perform at a high level.
Listen, since 2004, since when Big Ben came into the league, there's only been 3 quarterbacks that have at least, other than Big Ben, 3 5-turnover games, right? That's in 15 years. Big Ben's got 2 of them in a year.
Yep.
He had a 5-turnover game against the Jags. He had one. The only 5-turnover games that I know of in the last year plus in the NFL is the famous Peterman game. And now
you
2.
mean the half.
Right, the half. And now 2 by Big Ben. And the timing of the turnovers. You're up 21-7. James Conner, who had an excellent game, he fumbles. They end up, it's 21-14. But now it's 21-14 late in the fourth quarter. Big Ben fumbles, allows them, they end up tying the game. And then at the end of the game, in the end of overtime, when the Browns punt the ball away with 1:30, they are saying, we're taking the tie. Like, they could have gone for it on 4th and 10 and said, we don't want a tie, but they, I think, intelligently thought, tie is better than a loss, we'll punt it away, know that best we can do is a tie. Nope. Big Ben put them in position to lose. If Myles Garrett doesn't have a block in the back on the return, the Browns, the story today is the Browns won. They would have had the ball at the 9-yard line, either run it in or kick a field goal. I think the field goal would have had a much better chance from there than from where they ended up kicking it from. That's brutal by him. Like, all this noise surrounding L. Bell, all this noise surrounding Mike Tomlin. This is the highest paid guy on the team, future Hall of Fame quarterback, who told everyone who'd listen, I'm in my best shape, I'm ready to play 5 more years, ready for my best season. And you start off with 5 turnovers against a Browns team that couldn't force a turnover to save its damn life last year. That's brutal. That's why they were in this position, to go along with the Browns being a better team than they were last year.
Yeah, it's the exact opposite of what we're seeing from Aaron Rodgers, right? Both quarterbacks came out and they were vocal about trying to set a standard and about what they were going to come into this season about. But Aaron Rodgers actually showed us by coming out in that second half and having that type of performance. Ben Roethlisberger showed us what he's about by what he did in the fourth quarter and overtime. So when you look at the two teams, it's not a surprise to me to see the Steelers with not complacency, but a lack of urgency in critical situations, in critical phases of the game. And the Cleveland Browns did just enough not to lose that game. Now, they had an opportunity to win that game at the end, but I think there were some mistakes by them, turnovers by Tyrod Taylor. I didn't think he was great in terms of his pocket awareness either. But in terms of what the Cleveland Browns look like as a team, I think they have some positives that they can build on from this game. Myles Garrett looks legit as a pass rusher.
Aside from that one mistake I mentioned, he was unreal.
I mean, Nick, I'm right there with you in thinking that he's going to be one of those players that we talk about with the Defensive Player of the Year award. Like, he's at that level. But if you're Ben Roethlisberger, you can't let that game, the complexion of that game, change in the fourth quarter. You're a championship-level quarterback. You got to go out there and play like it. If that's the expectations for the Steelers this season, they've got to get more from their guy.
We'd be remiss if we didn't mention L. Bell, who was at home, I'm sure, watching this to see your replacement, James Conner, come in. Yeah, so James
the
Conner.
Monocle? The
James Conner comes in and has a good game. He has a good game for him. You wonder if, because he had a great game and the Steelers lost, was that good for L. Bell or tied rather? They didn't win, or not as good for L. Bell? Did it seem like they needed him, or maybe they don't need him?
Let me say this: they need Le'Veon Bell. I don't care how well James Conner plays. They need Le'Veon Bell. It was not, however, good for Le'Veon Bell because in this league, and Chris, you know this, anytime you can play and you allow someone else the opportunity to play and they shine, it takes a little bit more light off of you. And you just can't allow somebody to get that opportunity. He sees the moment. Absolutely, I'm excited for him. But Le'Veon Bell is a necessity to this football team if they're going to make the type of run that we expect and that they expect to have and make this year.
Listen, all credit to James Conner. I kind of scoffed at the idea of what the linemen were saying, that he could do what L. Bell does, and I don't know that. In fact, I know that I don't believe he can do it over a long sample. But yesterday he was great. He had 36 touches, he had 192 yards, he had 2 touchdowns. He had the bad fumble late, which you can't do, but he played an exceptional game for a guy whose previous big game was 4 carries for 26 yards. He had a high workload in awful conditions, and he stepped up. And so all the credit in the world to him. L. Bell, that if people can laugh, like as soon as the game ended, he tweeted out the emoji with the monocle on it, and then he was like, "No, it was no shade. I just had never seen a tie before."
Stop it. Stop it.
I mean,
L. Bell.
I don't believe it. And it feels like it's getting tougher and tougher for him to go back into that locker room if you're tweeting that out right after your teammates played a 4-hour game in those conditions.
Does he come back, yes or no?
At some point.
No, he's coming back this season because he wants that accrued year so he can be a free agent next year.
Yes, indeed.
All right, Greg, stick around. Coming up, why weren't the Giants able to get a